Hello everyone, welcome to today's session on deep dive on business intelligence features of SQL Server on Amazon RDS. I am Vishal Mehta, I'm the technical account manager, and my co-presenter is Poya Amini. He is a software development engineer. The main goal of this webinar is to give you insights into the business intelligence features of SQL Server on Amazon RDS service that we had announced support for in last few months. I will begin with a brief introduction of Amazon Relational Database Service, RDS. Then we will talk about business intelligence features, the SQL Server integration, analysis, and reporting services. Poya will give you a demo of the features, and then we can answer any questions that you may have. Let's start with a bit of background for those not familiar with Amazon RDS service. We launched RDS service more than 10 years ago. It was built by AWS as a way to help customers reduce the complexity in supporting critical transactional applications by making it easy to set up, operate, and scale a relational database in the cloud. RDS automates time-consuming administration tasks such as hardware provisioning, database setup, patching, and backups, while providing cost-efficient and resizable capacity. It frees you to focus on your application so you can give them the fast performance, high availability, security, and compatibility that it needs. RDS is available on several database instance types, optimized for memory, performance, or I/O. RDS is all about choices, an AWS service which offers fully managed open source and commercial databases. We offer PostgreSQL, MySQL, and MariaDB in the open source space. We offer SQL Server and Oracle in the commercial space. And we offer Amazon Aurora, our homegrown cloud-native MySQL and PostgreSQL compatible database. Amazon RDS for SQL Server supports the license-included licensing model. You do not need to separately purchase Microsoft SQL Server licenses. The license-included pricing is inclusive of software, underlying hardware resources, and Amazon RDS management capabilities. Amazon RDS for SQL Server DB instances can be provisioned with either standard storage or provisioned IOPS storage. It enables you to have SQL Server software powering your deployment, stay up to date with the latest patches automatically. It also provides Amazon CloudWatch metrics for your database instance deployments at no additional charge. Turn on by default is the automated backup feature of Amazon RDS, which enables point-in-time recovery for your database instance. Amazon RDS will back up your database instance daily and your transactional logs at 5-minute intervals and store both for a user-specified retention period. Amazon RDS will automatically replace the compute instance powering your deployment in the event of a hardware failure. When you create or modify your database instance to run a multi-AZ deployment, Amazon RDS will automatically provision a primary database in one availability zone and maintain a synchronous standby replica in a different availability zone. In the event of a planned database maintenance or unplanned service disruption, Amazon RDS will automatically fail over the SQL Server database to the up-to-date standby. Database operations can resume quickly without any manual intervention. In April 2020, we announced support for business intelligence features of SQL Server and RDS service, which is what we will cover next. One of the big blockers for our customers to move their SQL Server workloads from other hosts, including EC2 instance to RDS service, was no support for business intelligence features. Customer had to spin up EC2 instance and install SQL Server to have business intelligence features and pay extra licensing cost. Now our customers can consolidate the workloads and have SQL Server and business intelligence toolkit features running on the same RDS database instance, empowering them to better manage the workload and also save additional cost. Quick 101 on business intelligence. It is basically a process to convert your data into information that can help to make better business decisions. You start with collecting the data from one or multiple sources, then the data is transformed and analyzed, and then it is presented in forms of dashboards, reports, and charts, and so on to make a better decision. A typical business intelligence lifecycle looks like one shown here. A data on the left side can be in Excel sheets or on databases. This data is then processed through ETL, which stands for extract, transform, and load. Basically, it collects and aggregates data from multiple disparate sources and loads them into a single data source, such as a data warehouse. The analysis is then performed on the single data warehouse. The result of the analysis is put in a data structure, which we call it as cubes. Different business intelligence tools use different data structure terminologies, but the cube is the most popular one. The reports are then generated from analyzed data in various formats, such as graphs, tables, charts, which gives information to make meaningful decisions. The Business Intelligence Toolkit of SQL Server has features such as SSIS for ETL jobs, SSAS for analysis part, and SSRS for generating reports. Let's now talk about SQL Server Integration Services, also known as SSIS. It is a platform for building enterprise-level data integration and data transformation solutions. You can use integration services to solve complex business problems by copying or downloading files, loading data warehouses, cleansing and mining data, and managing SQL Server objects and data. Integration services can extract and transform data from a wide variety of sources, such as XML data files, flat files, and relational data sources, and then load the data into one or more destinations. It includes a rich set of built-in tasks and transformations, graphical tools for building packages, and integration services catalog database, where you store, run, and manage packages. You can use graphical integration services tools to create solutions without writing a single line of the code. Two main components which are tightly coupled are catalog and database in SSIS architecture. The front end is SSIS DB catalog, and the back end is transactional SSIS database. SSIS projects are organized into packages saved as XML-based .dtxx files. Packages can contain control flows and data flows. You use data flows to represent ETL operations. After deployment, packages are stored in SQL Server in SSIS DB database. SSIS DB is an online transactional processing OLTP database in the full recovery mode. Let's look deeper into SSIS catalog. The SSIS DB catalog is the central point for working with integration services projects that you deployed to the integration services server. For example, you set the project and package parameters, configure environments to specify runtime values for the packages, execute and troubleshoot packages, and manage integration services server operations. It can have multiple different folders inside it, as you can see here. Each folder can have multiple projects and environment variables in it. Each project can have multiple packages in it. And each package is defined by the customers and configured on how the data is ingested. The data is then cleaned and transformed into destination databases or files. When the instance is created or modified with SSIS option, the result is an SSIS DB database with the SSIS admin and log reader roles granted to the master user. The master user has the privileges to alter the SSIS admin role, log reader role, or alter any other user's roles. Because the master user is a SQL authenticated user, you cannot use master user for executing SSIS package. The master user can use these privileges to create SSIS DB users and add them to the SSIS admin and log reader roles. Doing this is useful for giving access to your domain users for using SSIS. The SSIS admin role can execute a package, delete a package, create and delete folders, environments, and so on. The log reader roles can query transactional SSIS DB to find out more information about the metadata and package execution details. Amazon RDS on SQL Server supports running SSIS directly on a RDS DB instance. You can enable SSIS on an existing or a new DB instance. With RDS service, you can load from local files, local or remote SQL Server databases, which could be on EC2 or on-premises. SSIS is supported on SQL Server 2016 and 2017 standard and enterprise editions. The database instance must use AWS Managed Microsoft AD. For more details on the dependencies and the features, please refer to the link shown below. Now let's talk about SQL Server Analysis Service, also known as SSAS. It provides online analytic processing, OLAP, for data from disparate data sources. SSAS allows users to analyze data with a host of tools including SSRS and Excel. In addition, SSAS enables the discovery of data patterns that may not be immediately apparent through the data mining features. Amazon RDS for SQL Server supports running SQL Server Analysis Service in tabular mode. You can enable SSAS on existing or a new database instances. It is supported on SQL Server 2016 and 2017 standard and enterprise editions. The database instance should have joined AWS Managed Microsoft AD. It can be only accessed on the port 2383. So configure your security groups to allow the traffic for that port. It is currently supported only in single AZ instances. For more details, you can refer to the link below regarding the dependencies and features. Now let's talk about Microsoft SQL Server Reporting Services, SSRS, which is a server-based application used for report generation and distribution. SSRS is a service built on top of SQL Server. You can use it to collect data from various data sources and present it in a way that can be easily understandable and used for analysis. This is a high-level architecture of SSRS. A report server is a stateless server that uses SQL Server database engine to store metadata and object definitions. It is the backend service that does all the report processing, scheduling, connecting to different data sources, such as SSAS and OLTP databases. When you add SSRS option for the first time, you see two new databases in your RDS instance, the RDS admin underscore report server and RDS admin underscore report server temporary database. SSRS is configured to use these databases. If you are on a multi-AZ RDS instance, you can see that RDS admin report server temp DB isn't mirrored or part of the availability group, which is normal. RDS automation manages these databases during failover or host replacement, so SSRS service isn't impacted. In the next slide, I will cover these databases in detail. The web portal is basically a UI of the report server to give you a web-based experience. In the portal, you can view reports, mobile reports, KPIs, and navigate through elements in your report server instance. You can use the web portal to administer a single report server instance. The report server database is a SQL Server database that stores the following content: items mapped by the report server, subscription and schedule definitions, report snapshots and report history, system properties and system level security settings, report execution log data, symmetric keys, and credentials for report data sources. Each report server database uses a related temporary database to store session and execution data, cache reports, and work tables that are generated by the report server. The background server processes will periodically remove older and unused items from the tables in the temporary database. You can activate SSRS on a single AZ or a multi-AZ instances on the standard or enterprise editions of SQL Server 2017. You get the benefits such as management of SSRS encryption keys, modifying SSRS configuration at the click of a button, software patching, and multi-AZ configurations, which provide a high availability for SSRS. The interface of SSRS is a web portal that you can interact with to create, view, edit, and delete reports. The reports allow you to visualize and make sense of your data in order to make business decisions. You can't configure SSRS to listen on the default SSL port 443. The allowed values are from 1150 to 49,511, except few reserved ports in between. The more details are covered at the link shown below. I will now hand over to Poya to walk us through the demo of these features.
Thanks, Vishal. In this demo, I'm going to show how to deploy and execute SSIS, SSAS, and SSRS projects on the RDS instances. I assume that you are already familiar with how to enable MSBI options on an RDS instance. If not, please follow the links to the AWS documentation that we provided in the description. On the AWS console, go to the RDS page, and for this demo, under the databases, I created one SQL Server Enterprise Edition 2017. And if we go to the options group, you can see I enable SSIS, SSRS on port 8000, SSAS on the default port 23A3, and also I enable SQL Server Backup Restore to restore AdventureWork 2014 for this demo. Note that RDS instance must be joined to an AWS Managed Microsoft Active Directory to enable Windows authentication. You must also enable Amazon S3 integration to be able to transfer files between your instance and your S3 bucket. For this demo, I've created one S3 bucket in order to move the files between my RDS instance and S3. So let's start with Integration Services, or SSIS. On Visual Studio Data Tools, I created a very simple project. You can create your own project, or you can import an existing one. On this specific project, I get some data from my SQL Server data source and write that data in a flat file. If you look at my data source, it's connected to my RDS instance and it's connected to AdventureWork 2014. And I run a very simple SQL command that joins two tables of person and salesperson and selects first name, middle name, last name, and sales amount. We can see a quick preview of the data that's going to be outputted. Also on the destination, as you can see, we write the output in the results.txt, which is on S3 folder on the D drive of RDS instance. Note that S3 folder is the only folder that you can actually add your data on your RDS instance. Before you deploy your SSIS project to the RDS instance, you need to modify some parameters. If you right-click on your project and go to Properties, you can see the protection level here is set to encrypt sensitive with user key. However, if you want to deploy your project onto RDS instance, this value should be set to do not save sensitive data. You need to do the same thing on the package level. To do so, go to Control Flow tab, right-click on a blank screen, and go to Properties, and you will see the same thing. It should be under the same value, protection level, and then you can modify it to do not save sensitive. The other thing that you need to change, if you use any data flow, So you need to right-click on a blank part of the data flow tab and go to properties. And there are two values called blob temp storage path and buffer temp storage path that both of them should be set to d column s3 backslash. Without setting these values, you are not able to deploy your SSIS project. Once you modify all these parameters, you can now deploy your SSIS project. However, you cannot directly use Visual Studio data tools. In order to deploy the SSIS project, you need to build the project first and then move the project files into your RDS instance through S3 integration. If you go to the project, under development, you can see the output of the project, which is SSIS project.spec. You need to somehow move this file to your RDS instance. That's why we created this S3 bucket. First of all, you upload the file to your S3 bucket. Once your file is in S3 bucket, you should now use S3 integration to move it to the RDS instance. You can connect to the RDS instance now, and I use Windows authentication. And if you want to move the file to the RDS instance, there is one S3 integration store procedure that you can use. Here, I specify the name of the bucket, and also this is the file that I'm gonna move to D and then S3 folder on the D drive of my RDS instance. When I run this store procedure, it gives me some information, and it gives me task ID and then the task sub and the life cycle. If you want to get the life cycle of your task, you can just now run this command and then the past task ID here. In this example, the task ID is 51, so just pass the 51 here. If I execute, it gives me more information about the download from S3 task that I just executed. And now you can see the life cycle has changed to in progress. Whenever the life cycle changes to success, it means that the file has been successfully on your RDS instance. If for any reason the life cycle goes to error state, you can always get information in the task info. Task info gives a lot of detailed information about your executed task. You need to run this command again and again until the task goes to success state. After you have the file on S3 folder on the D drive, you need to deploy your SSIS project. To deploy your SSIS project, there is another store procedure that you need to run, which is called SSIS deploy project. And then you pass the name of the file, which is SSIS project.spec, and it is under the column /S3. You also need to specify the folder name and the project name. If you don't have the folder, you need to create it under integration services catalogs. As you can see, there is no folder called sample, and I just want to create a new one. I right-click on SSIS-DB and choose Create Folder. Now, if I run this command, I should be able to deploy my SSIS project. Before that, I need to make sure my project file is on RDS instance. Now I can see the life cycle has changed to success, and I can run this command to deploy my project. As you can see, it gives me another task ID, which I can use it here to track the status of my task. Because the deployment can take time, I already deployed the same project under a different name, so that I can save time and execute it for you. If I go to the project, you can see one project is already deployed. And in order to execute the project, first of all, I need to update my connection string and give the password to the data source. So this is the connection manager for my RDS instance for my data source. As you can see, the password is empty. So I just create the password to access the data source. Now I should be able to execute the package. As you can see, the result is successful. It means that if you remember from the project, it should output the result into a file called results.txt. If you want to access to that result.txt, you can use S3 integration again to upload your files from your RDS instance to your S3 bucket. We need to run another store procedure. You pass the name of the file on your RDS instance, and you pass the bucket name and the file on that bucket. As you can see, it gives another task ID that you can use to track your task. In the meantime, you can see the status of the deployment task that I previously executed. And now you can see the task is successful. Now, if I refresh my SSIS DB, I should be able to see it. As you can see, the project has been deployed on my SSIS DB. Note that after you enable SSIS option, you still need to grant Windows user permission to perform SSIS related operations. If you look at the SSIS project, there are a lot of options of tasks to choose from. However, some of the tasks are restricted and you cannot use in SSIS on RDS. You can always seek the documentation to see the list of updated tasks that you can use on your SSIS RDS. I already executed a task to upload the result of my operation to the S3 bucket. If I just refresh my S3 bucket, I'm able to see the result.txt. If I open it, you can see the result of the SSIS task that we just executed. In terms of analysis services, the deployment works very similar to SSIS. Basically, you need to have your project, and once you build your project, you need to move your files to your RDS instance through S3 integration. So here I created a very simple tabular project based on the AdventureWork 2014. As you can see, there is one simple measure and one simple KPI. The same as SSIS, you need to do some sort of modification before you are able to deploy your project into your RDS instance. One of the important things is you need to remember to add your Windows user to any role for that specific project. Here, if you look at the roles, you can see that there is one admin role with admin privileges. And I added my user, MSBI, and admin user for that specific role. If you don't add any roles, you are still able to deploy the project, but you cannot see the deploy project because there is no Windows user who has access to see that project. One other thing that you need to do is to change your processing options. So the processing option by default is set to default. However, to be able to deploy your SSIS project to the RDS instance, you need to modify it to do not process. Once you do that, it means that SSAS would not kick off any processing after the deployment is successful. Now, once everything is ready, you can build a project. And in the output, you can see it created 3 files: model.as database, model.deployment options, and model.deployment targets. However, for deployment on RDS instance, you just need the first 2 files. Again, to be able to move these files to your RDS instance, you need to use S3 integration, and you need to have access to your S3 bucket again. Once the upload is complete, you again use the store procedure to download this file to your RDS instance. So this two store procedure basically downloads those files, model.as database and model.deployment options to your RDS instance. And this time, it gives you 2 IDs, 1 ID per task. Here, I just want to track the task 55. Once we are waiting for the store procedure to complete and I have my files on RDS instance, I already deployed 1 SSAS sample project on my RDS instance. To be able to see the deploy project, you need to connect to analysis services. This time, instead of database engine, you choose analysis services. Under the database, you can see that there is a project called sample_SSAS project. And to be able to process it, you kind of need the same thing that you did for SSIS. You need to update the connection string. Here, I provide the password to be able to connect to data source. And test connection is successful. And now we are able to start the processing. Here on the mode, we choose process default. So the processing might take time depending the size of the data source and the amount of data that you're importing to your SSAS database. And now you can see the processing has been done successfully. You can browse the database and do analytical operations that you want to do with your database. If I come back to the task that I already created to download my files to the RDS instance, I can see it's successful. For the first file, it's successful as well. Now we are ready to start another task to deploy the SSIS project. For deployment, you just need to pass the name of the AS database file. And then you can again track the task by passing the task ID. Because of lack of the time, I don't want to go through and executing the project again. However, I just want to mention that we have other store procedure for SSAS that you can use. If after deployment you notice that you have forgotten to add your Windows authenticated user, so you can create this store procedure and pass in your Windows authenticated user information and the name of the role that you want to create, and it automatically creates an admin role for you and adds that Windows authenticated user as a member. You can also back up your SSAS database file, but remember that you can only store the file under S3 folder. You can also restore the file. If you have the backup file on S3 folder, you can restore it, but remember, you cannot restore on the same database that already existing on your RDS instance. You need to provide a new database name so that you don't accidentally override the database that already exists. For reporting services, you need the address to access the SSRS portal. To access SSRS portal, you need to pass the URL of your web portal. Basically, the URL consists of HTTPS and then the endpoint for your RDS instance, and then the port under which you have enabled your SSRS option. We have enabled our SSRS option under the port 8000. And then you add / and reports. As you can see, my Windows user doesn't have access to the portal. In order to grant that Windows user permission, you need to run another store procedure. Basically, for SSRS, you actually run SSRS grant portal permission store procedure and pass the name of the Windows authenticated user that you want to grant access. Remember, SSRS on RDS uses only HTTPS SSL for its connection to the report server. So you must import an Amazon RDS certificate on the client instance. We have added links to the description for more details. Again, same as previous tasks, you can pass the task ID here to track the status of the task. And you can see here that the task has been changed to success. Now, if I come back to my browser, I try again, as you can see, I have access to the web portal. However, there is no project deployed on this portal. Here are Visual Studio data tools. I created a sample report that we're going to use in this demo. To deploy your report to SSRS, there are two different ways that you can do that. You can create the report file. Here is salesorder.rdl, and you can directly upload it through web portal. Or if you have project open on Visual Studio data tools, you can directly deploy it through here. I'm going to show both approaches here. First one, if I want to deploy the project directly from Visual Studio, if you right-click on the project and go to Properties, you need to pass the target server URL. Basically, it uses HTTPS, endpoint of your RDS instance, and then the port, which is 8000, because when we enable SSRS option, we pass 8000 as a port. And also report server. We just want to deploy the project. As you can see, it's deploying to our RDS instance, and it's successful. Now, if we come back to the portal, you can see the project has been created on our web portal. You can update the data source information if you want. So for example, here, I don't want every time to be asked about the credential. Here, I can say I want to use the username and password, SQL Server username and password to be able to connect to my data source. I test the connection, it's successful, I save. And now I click on the project and I'm able to see the reports. I'm going to do the same thing directly on the web portal. So I delete this project. And then on SSRS report, if I build it again, so it's create me the RDR file that I need to directly upload to the web portal. You can see the RDR file has been created here. If I go back to the portal, there is a section that allows me to upload the reports. And now, as you can see, the report has been uploaded. If I click on that, so it asks me for the username and password. I can do the same thing so that it doesn't ask me the username and password every time. Under data sources, I can choose, for example, to use always SQL Server user and password. If I come back again, now it shows me the report. If you have RDS instances and required Microsoft BI, you no longer need another SQL Server on an EC2 instance, for example, to support BI operation. You can now save licensing costs by having your BI workload on the same RDS instance. In this presentation, we show you how to deploy and execute projects on SSIS, SSAS, and SSRS on your RDS instance. With that, I would like to thank you for your time today. If you have any follow-up question, then feel free to reach out to us. Thank you and have a great day.